Ladies and gentlemen, we did it! We successfully completed the Pitt DLC, did every quest, talked to every person, explored every zone, and made one of the hardest decisions in the entire game. Now it's time to harvest a bounty of gear from the pit. There's only one new aid item that we get in the Pitt DLC, and that's the slop that we can get from Kai. I already talked about that in the very first episode. It's not super impressive. We already went over the 3 perks we can get simply by completing the primary storyline, so with this video I'm going to be talking about armor and weapons. Let's start with armor. There are 2 new slave outfits which are very similar, and they have identical stats. The worn slave outfit grants 2 DR, 1 agility, and 1 endurance. This outfit is a simple black harness. Women wear tattered rags around the waist and bust, and men just wear a tattered loincloth. The tattered slave outfit has the exact same stats, but there is a unique version of this called the laborer outfit. A fully repaired one gives you 5 DR, and in addition to the agility and endurance, it gives you +1 strength. This is our first reward for turning in 10 ingots at the mill.
Well now, look who made it back. I'll take those ingots, Scab. You just get back in there and get about your business. You got a real knack for this. Here, this might help you work a little harder. Original owner can't use it anymore on account of decapitation.
It and the tattered version look identical to the worn version, except the bikini and the loincloth are beige or tan instead of black. However, the harness part is still black. The final accessory to the slave ensemble is the welder's mask. A fully repaired welder's mask has a DR of 5 and a weight of 3, making it a pretty decent helmet, and it looks exactly like a Raider Arclight helmet from the base game. We can find all of these slave outfits and the welder's mask on either the dead slaves that the raiders kill, or if we choose to side with Ashur, we get a whole lot of these as we kill the slaves. Next up is the supervisor helmet. This helmet has the same DR as the welder's mask, coming in at 5. We find this on various raiders throughout the pit. It doesn't have any special stats, but there is a unique version of this helmet called the filtration helmet. A fully repaired version has the same DR of 5, but it grants +10 to radiation resistance. This is the second reward we get for turning in 20 ingots to the foreman.
Guess I could spare this.
It has a completely unique look. It looks like a combination construction helmet and gas mask. It gives me a big Ghost People vibe from the Dead Money DLC of Fallout New Vegas. The armor piece that goes best with this helmet is the Raider Iconoclast armor. There's no unique version of this armor, it just drops from raiders that we can kill in the pit. A fully repaired suit is going to have 18 DR, it weighs 15 pounds, and it grants +5 to rad resist. The male and female versions of this outfit are nearly identical. It looks like a slightly armored hazmat suit. It gives full body coverage, and we see hoses weaving in and out of it. If we don't want to kill raiders to get this outfit, we can buy one from Friday. Next up is the Gamma Shield Armor. A fully repaired suit gives a DR of 36, but it weighs a whopping 45 pounds. It grants +15 radiation resistance, but costs 1 agility. This is not a typical raider suit of armor. We only find 5 pieces of this armor in the pit. We find 2 in the hole. Gruber and John Bear wear this suit of armor, and we find the other 3 in the steel yard. One of the wild men near Wild Bill's corpse has one. A wild man we can kill in the supply plant has one. And the one I found was on a dead raider in a drainage ditch in the steel yard. It looks exactly like metal armor, both the male and the female version. But all of the other raider armor we find looks completely unique. Next up is the Raider Commando armor. A fully repaired suit gives us 18 DR and +3 to unarmed and small guns. We find a unique version of this armor called the Leather Rebel. It's better than the Commando armor with 30 DR, but it sacrifices the unarmed and small gun bonuses for a simple +1 to charisma. The Leather Rebel armor is the 7th reward we get for turning in 70 ingots to the foreman at the mill.
Guess you earned this. Used to belong to a desert priest. Said wearing it made him bulletproof. Of course, that didn't stand up to a little testing. But damn if it wasn't a gloriously fun time.
Everett's story here is a reference to a Judas Priest song called Leather Rebel. The outfit itself appears to be hacked together from blue jeans and an apron. The shoulder and shins are armored with metal, but both the male and female version just looks like it has a leather apron, a large belt buckle, and some blue jeans. Next up is the Raider Throwdown armor. A fully repaired suit gives you 18 DR at a cost of 15 weight, but plus 3 to unarmed and 3 to melee. We find a unique version of this outfit called the Metal Master armor, which is of course a reference to the Mad Max series. It's a significantly better piece of armor, coming in at 36 DR when fully repaired and only 15 weight. This is the third best piece of armor in the entire game when you take a look at a DR to weight ratio, only surpassed by General Jingwei's uniform and Maple's garb. That is, it has a very high DR for the low weight. This is the fourth reward we get for turning in 40 ingots to Everett.
How about I give you some metal this time? Here, this armor was a special order for one of the hole fighters. Great against bullets, but didn't help him when he got pushed off the bridge.
It looks like a trimmed-down version of metal armor. It has many of the same pieces, but the pauldrons are noticeably different, and both the male and female versions leave the belly and upper arms uncovered. Since my character plays an energy weapons character, this is the suit I was most excited about. Next up is the Raider Ordnance armor, and this is likely a misspelling of the word ordnance. When fully repaired, this has a DR of 18 with a weight of 10, and it grants us plus 4 to small guns. There's a unique version of this costume that we get as the sixth reward for turning in 60 ingots to Everett, called the Bombshell armor. It has a much better DR of 24, and instead of small guns, it grants plus 10 to big guns and plus 10 to explosives, with a little more weight coming in at 15. This is the sixth reward for turning in 60 ingots to Everett.
You bet I do. Check out this cutting edge of fashion. Wear this armor, and everyone's gonna want to get close to you. Which just means they'll be inside your blast radius, huh?
It has a very unique look. It's been hacked together with pieces of a mini-nuke. The female version has short shorts and a bikini made from the caps to two mini-nukes, and the male version has longer shorts, and it looks like the tail of the mini-nuke is affixed right above his sternum, which seems very odd and looks uncomfortable. Still, it's a great little costume. Next up is the Raider Paingiver armor. When fully repaired, this gives us a DR of 18, but a weight of only 5. That makes it the lightest Raider armor in the entire game. Plus, it also grants plus 4 to unarmed. There's no unique version of it in the game, but we find both a male and female version. The female version has a corset, and the male version is topless with a big leather belt. I couldn't find this on Friday's shop when I looked, but we do find it on many of the raiders walking around. Next up is probably one of the most exciting pieces, the Tribal Power Armor. When fully repaired, it gives us a DR of 35 and a weight of 40. But look at these stats. It has plus 1 luck, plus 1 strength, plus 15 AP, plus 5 to melee, and only -1 to agility. Even though it costs 1 agility, the plus 15 AP more than compensates for it. We get a net gain of 13 AP by wearing this suit of armor. That means that this piece of armor gives us the greatest AP bonus, even despite the -1 to agility, than any other piece of armor in the entire game. This suit is the ultimate and 10th reward for turning in all 100 ingots to Everett.
Well, I'll be damned. That makes 100 ingots you found. And here I remember thinking you'd be lucky to bring back any at all. Ain't no question. You earned the treasure of my collection. This armor goes all the way back to when the Brotherhood tried to wipe out the pit. Some of the tribals who worshipped Ashur made it to look like their god. Try it on, and you'll feel a little like a god yourself.
The tribals who made it fashioned it after Ashur's power armor. It looks identical to Ashur's power armor. We get Ashur's power armor off of his body if we choose to kill him, and it's a little bit better than the tribal when it comes to DR. It has 40 DR with a 45 weight, and the stats are a little different. It has plus 1 luck, plus 1 charisma, plus 1 strength, and -1 agility. But instead of giving us the AP bonus, it gives us plus 10 to radiation resistance. So In my mind, as a VATS character, I'd prefer the tribal power armor over Ashur's set. But the look of both suits of armor is amazing. It looks like a modified suit of T-45 power armor that the Brotherhood of Steel uses. Ashur and the Tribals have painted it up with classic Pittsburgh Steelers colors, gold and black, and it's been outfitted with 2 skulls. A human skull covering the crotch plate, and what looks like a Brahmin skull in place of the left pauldron. That pauldron must have gone missing, and Ashur repaired it with this skull. It certainly gives the suit a more menacing appearance. Next up is the Hat of the People. This hat gives us an unimpressive DR of only 1, but it grants us +5 to small guns. We find it in the abandoned apartment in Uptown right across the street from Haven. It's in a locked safe underneath a bedside table. It's a unique Chinese commando hat that looks like a Russian Yashanka hat, but it's got a communist Chinese logo right on the front. It's a nifty one and a great little addition to anyone's armor collection. Now we get to talk about weapons, and we'll start with the iconic weapons of this DLC and of the slaves, the auto axes. The first is a steel saw. This is the weakest version of the auto axe, and it's only used by the slaves. We only get it by pickpocketing it or killing them. It functions like a really big ripper, and a fully repaired one has a damage of 16, giving it a DPS of 16. But it's pretty heavy, weighing 20 pounds. An improved version is called the Auto Axe. We get this from Marco during the main quest, and we can find it on the corpses of slaves during the revolt. A fully repaired one, when perks are not considered, has a damage of 35 and a DPS of 35. But like the steel saw, it only weighs 20 pounds, making it a much better weapon for the weight. The next one is the Man Opener. We find this inside the supply plant in the steel yard. It's at the very end, lying on the bed. A fully repaired version has the exact same damage, DPS, and weight as the Auto Axe, but the unique thing about this weapon, even though it's not listed here, is that it completely ignores damage resistance, even towards enemies who are wearing a full suit of power armor. So it's going to do the exact same damage to a person who's completely naked as it will to a person wearing a full suit of Hellfire power armor, making it a very powerful weapon. The final one is the Mauler. It's the strongest version. When fully repaired and when perks are not considered, it has a damage and DPS of 45, but the same weight as the steel saw, only 20. Plus, it uses less AP. All of the others use 65 AP, but this one only uses 50. That makes the Mauler the single most damaging melee weapon in the entire game if you discount the shish kebab in combination with the pyromaniac perk. But the high weight of 20 pounds may make it an impractical weapon for some players. Since this is such a fast melee weapon, if you combine it with perks like Superior Defender, which grants +5 to damage when standing still, and Ghoul Ecology, which grants +5 to damage against ghouls, you can make the DPS that comes out of this sucker far greater than any other non-automatic weapon. The Mauler is the 8th reward that we get from Everett after turning in 80 ingots.
All the metal you're bringing in, I suppose it's worth giving you something to really help with those trogs. Here, this thing's mauled trogs and ghouls from here to Monroeville. Give it a whirl.
Like all of the auto axes from the pit, we carry it on our backs, and we use it like a ripper. We just stand in place, pull the trigger, and allow our enemies to walk right into us and to their deaths. The blade is covered in dried blood. It's a nasty and brutal weapon. I love everything about it. The next unique one is the Steel Knuckles. This is a unique version of the Brass Knuckles. It's better than Brass Knuckles, but not quite as good as Plunkett's Valid Points. When fully repaired and before perks are considered, it has a damage of 9, which brings the DPS up to 14.2. But its AP cost is only 14, which gives it one of the lowest AP costs of any weapon in the game. It's a great unarmed solution for players who don't want to get the Lawbringer perk and therefore won't be killing Junder's Plunkett. This is the 3rd reward we get from Everett after turning in 30 ingots.
See for yourself. If you're heading back out there, these ought to help with the trogs.
But even though it's called Steel Knuckles, it looks a lot like a pair of brass knuckles. Next up is the Infiltrator SMG. This weapon is a silenced and scoped assault rifle with a few modifications. The stock has been removed, and it's a lot shorter than an assault rifle. Because of this, it has the lowest damage and DPS of any weapon in the assault rifle class. A fully repaired one before perks are considered has 7 damage, giving it a DPS of 56. We get this off of Gruber, the final boss in the hole, and it's also carried by mechs and the raiders that meet us at the gate to the pit when we first arrive. It's a silenced and scoped weapon, and it shoots incredibly fast, but it's extremely hard to handle. Here you can see me trying to manage with it. I'm not even moving my mouse, but look how much I wiggle around here. It's such an unwieldy weapon that it's not practical for many situations. However, since it's a silenced automatic weapon, someone with a high sneak skill can take great advantage of the sneak attack critical bonus you can get when using this gun. There is a unique version of this called the Perforator. It's much better than the Infiltrator. A fully repaired version before perks are considered has a damage of 10, bringing the DPS up to 60. This is the 9th reward that we get from Everett after turning in 90 ingots at the mill.
I probably shouldn't, but damn if you ain't earned it. Here, this is the best gun I ever had. A little slower on the trigger, but she makes up for it in power and accuracy. Use her in good health.
Even though it has a higher DPS, critical chance, and critical damage, the AP cost is a bit higher. The Infiltrator only costs 23 AP, the Perforator costs 27. It's also different from the Infiltrator in that it fires much more slowly. The Perforator fires 2 shots for every 3 shots shot by the Infiltrator. Here are the 2. First is the Infiltrator. Notice how fast it shoots. And here's the Perforator. Because of this slower rate of fire, the Perforator has reduced spread, making it a much easier gun to use when sniping from a distance. Like the Infiltrator, this thing is really useful for getting multiple sneak critical bonuses. Next up is Wild Bill's sidearm. This is a unique 32 caliber pistol. We find it on Wild Bill's body inside the steel yard. When fully repaired and before perks are considered, it has a damage of 10, bringing the DPS up to 30, making it nearly twice as powerful as a typical 32 caliber pistol. The best benefit of this gun is that it fires really fast outside of VATS. It's one of the few weapons that can fire almost as fast as you can click your mouse. Due to this and the abundance of 32 caliber ammunition, it makes the weapon a pretty decent gun even towards the middle of the game. And finally, my personal favorite, the Metal Blaster. This is a unique laser rifle. If fully repaired and before perks are considered, has a damage of 55, bringing the DPS up to 112.5. We get this as the 5th reward from Everett by turning in 50 ingots at the mill.
Sure thing. Bit of a weird one here. Found it from some sucker out of town. Some genius got to tinkering with his laser. Polished metal barrel, a few prisms in there, and he got this lethal light show.
But the unique thing about it is that it shoots out 9 laser beams at the cost of only 1 microfusion cell. This coincides with Everett's explanation of the weapon, that it uses a prism to split 1 laser beam. That said, the spread of this weapon is pretty tight. The beam continues to spread over great distances, but even far away, you can get all 9 beams to hit in a pretty close area. However, this is not true when used inside of VATS. VATS uses a different calculation, so if it calculates a miss, all 9 beams are going to miss. That makes the weapon much more effective if used outside of VATS, which is fine with me because I was really looking for a good energy weapon to use outside of VATS. Now, that 55 damage that it has is split between each beam. It's not like each beam is going to do 55 damage, but each beam outside of VATS can cause a separate critical hit, which would do plus 27 damage per critical hit. If you add that on top of a sneak attack critical bonus, which is going to be calculated for each beam of the laser, and if you calculate in the better criticals perk, even before counting any bonuses from speccing into energy weapons, if you land a critical hit from stealth, you can deal 839 total damage if all 9 beams hit the same target. In my mind, this makes it much better than a tri-beam laser rifle. The tri-beam laser rifle only shoots 3 beams, but it costs 3 microfusion cells for each shot. That's because the beams are generated from within the device instead of being split by a prism. So even though the tri-beam laser rifle can do 75 damage, I still think this Metal Blaster is one of the best laser rifles in the game, simply because it has 9 different beams. But anyway, I'll stop geeking out over it now. Lastly, one of the best rewards we get with this DLC is the ability to craft our own ballistic ammunition. Sadly, the autopress in the mill doesn't create energy ammunition, which is a bummer for me since I use energy weapons, but we can still use this to make a bit of money. We find the materials bin right next to the caged entrance to the hole by that platform where Brand likes to walk around. Now, there is some crazy complicated math that goes into the scrap metal and ammunition conversions that go on with this thing, but to make best use of this and to ensure that you don't waste scrap metal and ammunition, I'll tell you about the 30-3 rule. First, we'll start with using scrap metal to craft brand new rounds of ammunition. Always place scrap metal in the bin in multiples of 3. Only multiples of 3 evenly divide into every kind of ammunition type we can make. If we don't put scrap metal in multiples of 3, then we could choose to craft an ammunition type that'll cause us to waste some of the scrap metal. When we're ready to craft our ammunition, we head on over to Brand's platform, where we find the ammo press terminal, and from here we can select the type of ammunition we want to make. Now, each piece of scrap metal breaks down into 20 ammo units. Each type of ammunition costs a different number of ammo units to create. The cheapest is 5mm ammunition, which costs 1 ammo unit to craft. The 2 most expensive types of ammunition are .44 Magnum and .308 caliber, which cost 15 ammo press units. To complete the list, 10mm rounds cost 2, .32 caliber rounds cost 5, 5.56mm cost 3, and shotgun shells cost 10. But as long as we put in scrap metal in multiples of 3, even if we accidentally choose the wrong kind of ammunition, we can always change it to something else and we haven't lost any of our raw material. In this example, I put in 30 pieces of scrap metal, I chose 5mm rounds, and then we can press calculate production run, but this calculation is not very helpful. It just gives us a rough estimate. So instead we select press the 5mm rounds, and then when we're done, we can go over to the bin to see that we now have 600 rounds of 5mm ammunition. 30 times 20 is 600. Now, what if we don't have any scrap metal? Well, we can still make great use of this. We can convert one type of ammunition into a completely different type. So let's start with .44 Magnum ammunition. Now, the rule of thumb when converting ammunition is to always place it into the hopper in multiples of 30, not 3. We place scrap metal in multiples of 3, and we always place ammo in multiples of 30. That's the only way we can do this without losing some of our ammunition. Now, remember how we said earlier that each round of .44 Magnum ammunition breaks down into 15 ammo press units. So doing the math, if we put 30 rounds into this hopper, that breaks down to 450 ammo press units. So basically what we're doing by walking over to this terminal now is choosing how to spend these 450 ammo press units. Now remember earlier we said that each round of 5mm ammunition only breaks down to 1 ammo press unit. So, if our math is right, if we convert the .44 Magnum we put in there into 5mm, this should turn into 450 rounds. After pressing the ammunition and walking back to the materials bin, lo and behold, we've got 450 rounds of 5mm ammunition. And because we used it in multiples of 30, we didn't lose anything. The math divided evenly and there was no waste. I'll do the .308 caliber round to show you that the cost of the .44 Magnum and the .308 is the same. So we'll put 30 rounds of .308 in the hopper. Remember, this equates to 450 ammo press units. So if we choose to convert these into .44 Magnum, this should be a direct swap. We should walk over and see 30. And lo and behold, we have 30 .44 Magnum rounds. Now 10mm rounds break down into 2 ammo press units. So putting 30 rounds of 10mm in there, we now have 60 ammo press units to spend. Heading on over to the press, we can choose shotgun shells. Now, shotgun shells are expensive, not quite as expensive as .308 caliber and .44 Magnum. Each shotgun shell is worth 10 ammo press units. But because we put our 10mm ammunition in the bin in multiples of 30, we're still not going to waste any ammunition. By choosing shotgun shells, we should walk away with 6. And checking the bin, sure enough, we've got 6 shotgun shells. And I'll do one more just for fun. We can leave these 6 shells in here, go back over to the terminal, choose 10mm again, and we should have the exact same number we put in, which was 30. Sure enough, we've got our 30 rounds of 10mm back. So, rule of thumb, if you're breaking down scrap metal into ammunition, always put it in the bin in multiples of 3. If you're changing one type of ammunition to another, always put it in the bin in multiples of 30. If you follow those 2 rules, you can mix and match and swap as much as you want and you won't waste anything. It's a great little feature. I love this thing. It alone is a compelling reason to buy and install this DLC. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is all of the wonderful new loot that we can walk away with after completing the Pitt DLC. And this brings our series to an end. I had so much fun playing the Pit and sharing my thoughts and experiences with all of you. Thank you so much for sticking around for the ride. I've been reading all of your comments, and I know many have been wondering what DLC I'm going to do next. Never fear, ladies and gentlemen, I will do a video series like this for every DLC in both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. I'm doing them in the order that they were released, and I'm alternating games each time, so the next series I'll do will be on New Vegas. But for Fallout 4 fans out there, never fear, I'm not ignoring you. I've got a ton of wonderful Fallout 4 content planned. I haven't even scratched the surface. Okay, well, maybe I've scratched the surface of Fallout 4 lore, but hey, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Well, maybe it's a little bit more like the middle of the iceberg. What I'm trying to say is that I've got a whole lot more Fallout 4 content left to produce as well. I take Sundays off, so I'm not going to have a video for you on Monday, but I'll be back in strength Tuesday morning with a brand new Fallout video. We'll be picking up our regular schedule of Fallout 4, Fallout 3, and Fallout New Vegas content next week. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss my next video, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. Thank you all so much for sticking with me during this series. You all have a fantastic Sunday, and I'll see you Tuesday morning, bright and early, with a brand new video.